scenario, be aware of your body language. So if I was walking in and I'm talking to you, what's your first name? Natalie. So Natalie, if I'm talking to Natalie and my arms are folded, what message am I sending to Natalie? I'm not approachable. What else would you say?
Upset about something.
I've already made up my mind. I'm not approachable. I'm freezing. I'm a little cold. You know, it's a little chilly. Okay. So what if I turn my body this way, Nate? If Nate's right there and my body is turned away from Nate, what message is that sending to Nate?
You don't want to talk to him.
I don't want to talk to him.
He's not important.
He's not important. Very good. What else?
You're in a hurry.
I'm in a hurry. And that's a very good insight, because when I turn my feet away, it means that I'm ready to leave the conversation. And sometimes, again, going back to the interview scenario, when we walk in that room, we're not aware of our body language. What is the message that's being sent? And that can be a blockade to forming that connection with the interviewer, right off the bat. So think about your body language. Number one, keep your body position open. I always say keep your arms open, hands on the lap. Don't block off, don't kind of barricade yourself in. Because right off the bat, you're sending the message that I'm not approachable, I'm not interested, I'm disengaged, or I'm cold. Okay? Number two, keep comfortable eye contact. Sometimes keeping a gaze as you're talking with people can be a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, you don't want to stare somebody down, you know, because that would just be awkward. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you're maintaining eye contact with the person that's speaking. It shows that you are engaged in the conversation. And the funny thing about that is that we all love when somebody makes eye contact with us, but we're not necessarily conscious when we're talking to other people. Number three, keep your shoulders facing the person speaking. Now, sometimes you might walk into a scenario where it's called a panel interview, where you might interview with a few different people at the same time. It's very efficient. A lot of organizations are starting to do that. So walking in, be aware that your shoulders are facing the person that's talking and you're moving your head, because it kind of lets them know, I'm here, I'm engaged in what you're saying. Don't kind of be there like a robot and just kind of, because it looks creepy, so don't do it. You know, just don't. You know? And then the final thing is practicing even a group setting, a group interview setting. So one of the other things is that they flip the interview. So sometimes you'll walk in, depending on what type of position you're applying for, and you'll have the panel interview where you might have 3 or 4 decision makers and just you. I call that the gauntlet, okay? However, it might be switched and you might have one person or panel of people interviewing a group of qualified candidates. I'm telling you, there's 2 different levels to that interview. Level number 1 is to see how you deal with pressure, okay? Level number 2 is to see how you interact with people. And I'll tell you again, you know, I've done a lot of these group interviewings, it's just very time effective. And the thing that always can sink you is when you disengage after you've answered the question. You know, I had a young lady, it was an interview scenario. She gave like a rock star answer. I was like, yes! That's a great answer. And then I went on to the next person and she just totally shut down. She's like looking at her watch, she's like looking at the sky. I'm not sure if she saw birds or something, but she was just fascinated by whatever was on the ceiling. And so, because of that, it sent the message to me. Again, her body language was sending a message to me that was different than what she was saying she's not a team player. Because if you can't even pay attention to the person next to you and show interest, it shows me that you might be a great individual performer, but you're probably not a team player. So be aware, even in that group scenario, specifically, you're always interviewing. There's no timeouts in the interview. And so that connection, stay connected to the interview process, to the person answering questions. You can give, you know, nods, validations, smiles, things like that to let them know that you're still bought into this. Because you're sending that message to the interviewer or interviewers like, you know what, he or she's in it to win it. They're really engaged, they're a team player. They might be the right fit for our culture. So always be conscious of your body language. So step 2 is getting our people to like us. Like I mentioned before, this is not a popularity contest. When we talk about liking people, we want to make them feel valued. So how do you make people feel valued? Hearing versus listening. So if I were to ask you, what does it mean to hear someone, what would you say to me?
Perceived sound.
Perceived sound. What else would we add to that?
Acknowledge to what they're saying.
Acknowledge what they're saying. Okay? Anything else?
Respond in kind.
Respond in kind. Okay? Now, what if I said listening? What's the difference between hearing and listening?
Internalizing what someone's saying.
Internalizing. I love that. Internalizing what someo's saying.
Engagement.
Engagement.
Taking everything to heart.
Taking everything to heart.
It's more active.
It's more active.
Understanding.
Understanding?
Seeking.
Seeking. Oh. Listening for the purpose of understanding versus the purpose of being understood. See, that's the difference. You see, sometimes in the interview scenario, we hear the questions, but we don't listen to the questions. Because we're so up here in our mind going, okay, let me give the right answer, let me get there. That we're not really listening to the context, to, the vocal tonality of it. We're just trying to get to the answer. So there's actually 3 different levels to listening. So level 1 is essentially hearing. You're just hearing the kind of noise that's coming in, you're just processing it. It's like, okay. It's very self-centric. You're thinking about what you feel about what the person is saying. But level 2 is about thinking about the context. Why is the person saying this? Why is it important to them? What does it matter? You're seeking to understand that person speaking. And that's a powerful thing in an interview. It's an incredibly powerful thing. Because people aren't listened to. They're not. I believe the statistic is that we look at a mobile device, a phone, or a tablet or something, every 90 seconds. Every 90 seconds. People are not engaged in conversations. They're like, but they're not really invested in the conversation. And when you're invested in the conversation, you pick up so many little details. So many little details. And so one of the things, 38% of our communication is in voice tonality. So let me explain what voice tonality is. As an executive coach, I deal with a lot of my clients on the phone. It just works better in their schedules. And so I have to really listen to the timbre of their voice. What are they saying? So voice tonality. If someone is speaking and their voice resonates between their belly button and their chest, they're comfortable in what they're saying. They believe it. It's something that's important to them. However, if someone doesn't believe it or there's stress, their voice is going to resonate from the throat area. So it's like, okay, that's fun to know, fun fact, but how does that help us in an interview? Okay, how many of you have had the first interview has been a phone interview? Yeah, it's very popular these days. So learning to listen for those voice changes gives you insight into how important the question they're asking is. So if you'll kind of baseline the first questions and say, okay, he's speaking from here, or she's speaking from here. And that'll be the questions that have that extra beef, that extra thing that's important to them. And it gives you insight to like, okay, I need to bring it when I answer this one. But the others, they might be like, oh, okay, let me just go ahead and ask this question because it's in the guide, and their voice will come from up here. And so when you pick up on that, it gives you tremendous insight in that ability to connect because you can speak to something that's important to the person that's interviewing. And on a side note, I will tell you, it also will improve your family life, your friends, your relationships. Because as we said, every 90 seconds, someone's looking at a phone or watch something else. You can drastically change your personal relationships by listening. Just by listening. Not at level 1, level 2. Think about the context. Seek to understand. It will change your relationships. How many people, I won't even ask this question. I'll just put myself out there. I know I've had personal relationships with people and they're like, well, you don't listen to me. Or I said that to someone else. And there's a powerful thing with listening. And sometimes, I'll just be honest, it's about listening to yourself. Are you seeking to understand yourself inside? Versus just kind of hearing the background noise of the world going on around you. So, listening is incredibly powerful because it adds that extra bit of oomph. So that takes us to step 3. Solidifying trust with a powerful recap. So we said know, like, and trust. So this is the 3rd step. This is the trust piece. This is where, at the end of the interview, you're going to kind of say back in context, using their own words, because you've been listening. You've been listening. So you know what's important to them. So you might say, Mrs. Jones, as I understand, one of the things that you're looking for in this position is a organized structure, somebody who's going to be able to work independently, as well as be a self-starter. Do I understand you correctly? And they're going to be like, oh, wow, okay, they get it. And again, it would go back to that whole fit thing, that connection piece. This person fits into our culture. So those recaps allow this person to validate their feelings about you that they've got, because we've gone through the first door of positive body language. We've gone through the second door of them listening. So this is the 3rd door, and this is where you kind of shut it down. Like, again, close it down. And it allows that person to just validate their feelings that you get it. So 1, you start by reflecting back on your understanding of the conversation. You make it crystal clear. If you can, use their own language. If you're doing, I'm be perfectly honest with you, it's a great thing to just take notes through the course of the interview. Specifically, if you're on the phone, I would have Post-its everywhere. And allow you to speak back in their own language. 2, point out our interviewers' hot points. So again, those kind of heavily weighted questions where they might ask a question, then ask a follow-up question, then ask a 3rd question. That's something that's important to them. It might directly impact their job or their role in the organization that you're applying for. So you nailing that particular question is going to be crucial. Again, be authentic. Be yourself. Because you have to be yourself for the next 30 years. So be authentic and be yourself. But really nail that question by pointing out those hot button topics that they've kind of brought up through the course of the interview. 3rd, reflect on key skills needed for job success and connect it back to your background. So we're not just going to be like, okay, this is great. These are the tools. These are the pieces that you need for this job. You want to build that bridge. Again, form the connection. Have a meeting of the minds that you're capable of facilitating those particular responsibilities because of the background that you already have. As Allison said, she used her experience with her client to get the job where she is. So she was able to make that connection, am I right, in your interview, and that's what landed you the job. So build those connections back to your skills. Just don't validate what they said. Build that bridge for him. Take the guesswork out of it for him. Make it easier. Finally, you need to close with powerful questions. Powerful questions. The questions that we have a tendency to ask at the end of an interview is, well, how many vacation days do I get? What's the benefits plan look like? What's my 401k? And I'm not dispelling those. I've asked those questions a million times myself, okay? So I'm not trying to say that those questions are not important. But realize that you're still interviewing. So the thing that's going to be most beneficial is for you to ask those questions that are going to be vital to you making the decision. Vital to you making the decision. Is getting an extra week of vacation going to make you turn down a job? No, for me, it's not. Is, the fact that your deductible might be $250 more gonna make you turn down a job? No. So why ask those questions? Again, you're trying to build a meeting of the minds. You're trying to build that relationship with the person interviewing you. So even this process of you asking questions is to solidify that relationship. So ask questions such as this. I'm just going to use my friend Allison as an example. Yeah, she's like, oh my goodness, didn't my speech leave me alone? So I might say to Allison, before you join this organization, what made you want to join this organization? That's going to make her think. That's going to make her reflect on her experience and share her experience, something personal with you, which solidifies the connection, the meeting of the minds, the building of a relationship, because she's sharing something that's personal about herself. If I were to ask Nate, you've been with this organization 2 years. What's kept you here? What's made you want to stay? Again, Nate's going to talk about the things that are important to him. So you want to ask questions that's going to invoke the interviewer to share some personal information. Like, don't say like, so do you prefer apple pie or cherry pie? Because it's not really going to help you. But focus on asking those questions about the job. Say, what is it about the culture of this organization that means the most to you? What has been the single most important thing that you've learned while you've been with this company? You want to ask powerful questions that, number one, embed you in their memory, so that you're not just another interview candidate. You're not number 4 for the day. You become Stacy or Robert or Jeffrey. You become a person, not just an application or a resume. Those things are important, but those are just to get you in the door. It's the relationship building that's going to help you deliver and close and get that job. So let's recap what we've discussed. Number 1, communication is the act of conveying information or data. Again, use text messages as that example. It's just information. But connection is about building a small relationship or having a meeting of the minds with the person that you're interviewing. Connection is much more powerful. All begins with rapport. Rapport is about 3 areas: getting to know, like, and trust. That's what you're going for when you walk into that interview, is establishing rapport. Rapport has 3 areas. Number 1, exhibit positive body language. Keep your body language open, shoulders straight, maintain eye contact. Keep your feet directed towards the person. Do not guard your body unless you're cold. Number 2, you want to listen versus hear, which means you're not trying to jump to the next question because, oh, I know the answer to this. No, you're listening for context, you're listening for voice inflection, you're listening for those things that are going to be important to the interviewer. And then you're going to respond knowledgeably and confidently. And then third, you're going to have a great recap of your understanding of the roles and responsibilities that connect to the job and position that you're interviewing for. 4, you're going to close with powerful questions. Again, lock it down. Make sure that they're crystal clear that you're the right person for the job. This is about you. This is about being authentic and true to yourselves. Because again, as we started, you're good enough. I know you're good enough. Your friends and family know you're good enough. So walk in there confidently and be you. Don't be Barbie. Again, she's had a great 75-year run, but I don't know that I would hire her. Okay? Though she does have the Malibu house and the Corvette and all that fun stuff, I don't think she needs a job. But it's... right? So it's all about being authentic and being yourself. Because if you're not being authentic, you can't continue to be this manufactured synthetic version of yourself in your work schedule day after day, week after week, because then you're going to be miserable at your job. So what questions can I answer for you tonight?
So we talked a little bit about body language.
Yes.
Can you talk about